Welcome to Bold Agendas, a series of thought leadership podcasts dedicated to the discussion of transformation management. In each episode, we explore topics of strategic importance to business leaders who are navigating their organizations through transformative change. In the life sciences sector, success requires more than just innovation and precision. It's about fostering relationships across a widening ecosystem of stakeholders and embedding a culture that balances operational excellence with strategic vision. For leaders, this means creating environments that support innovation, collaboration, and sustained growth. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Susanne Clark to our episode. As the new CEO of Canopy Life Sciences, Susanne brings over 25 years of experience in operational excellence, client relationship management, and stakeholder engagement. Under her leadership, Canopy Life Sciences is advancing clinical to commercial solutions that accelerate the journey from pipeline to patient. My name is Mimi Brooks. I'm the CEO of Logical Design Solutions, a strategic advisory firm, and I'm a leadership coach. And today we're exploring how Susanne is balancing operational discipline with bold leadership, and how relationships and culture are the foundation of her strategy for success. In this episode that we're calling Leading Through Connection, Building a Future in Life Sciences with Susanne Clark. Let's get started. Welcome, Susanne. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really delighted to have you. Great to see you.
Good to see you too, Mimi. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Right.
Susanne, what I was hoping we could talk about today is a couple of things that I think are attributes of you as a leader that are very strong. And I think our audience is going to be real interested in the context of Canopy Life Sciences that you're the CEO of, and I'll let you talk about that in just a sec. What's it meant as you stepped into the CEO role, and how are you using your very long and strong background in operational excellence to run a growth strategy that I imagine is a combination of operational excellence as well as innovation, particularly in such a dynamic industry as life sciences. So real interested in talking about that, and also talking about the changing nature of the relationships that you've needed to develop and that you think you'll need to develop as we think about a pretty changing ecosystem in terms of where Canopy operates. Sound good?
Absolutely. That sounds terrific.
Perfect. So let me give you the floor for a few minutes, because I don't know that our audience would understand what Canopy Life Sciences does. So maybe you can give us a bit of, who are they? What are they doing for whom? What's the value differentiator? And anything else you might want to say about how you've landed this CEO role that I think you're coming up on your first year on.
I am. I know it's hard to believe it's been almost a year. I would love to tell you a little bit about Canopy Life Sciences, Mimi. So I joined Canopy almost a year. It'll be a year in April. So the role that I took was of president, with the anticipation of coming in as the successor to the CEO. So Canopy is a service provider, as you said, within the life sciences community, really with a focus predominantly within what is called content review. So it's a consultative service that works in partnership with life sciences, medical, legal, and regulatory operations, medical affairs groups, as well as regulatory affairs and operations. So it's a really unique business and opportunity that I came to be a part of. So for me personally, my journey, I came here via what I would say is healthcare communications. I was working mostly within medical affairs groups. So the opportunity to diversify my own skill set was quite appealing. I have to say I was very lucky with regards to my journey to Canopy, and that a previous colleague that I had worked with had let me know that Canopy was doing really well as an organization. They had been growing exponentially over the years, and they were really looking to bring in a new CEO with regards to allowing the existing CEO, a fellow by the name of Joe Walsh, to move into the executive chair role. And I have to say, Joe was lovely as part of my candidate experience and coming into Canopy as a part of my interview project process. He and I just seemed to really click, if you will, with regards to our overarching approach and strategy to operationalizing a business. He's quite a visionary, and over the past, as I said, 5 years in the role, has taken Canopy with its core competencies of really those MLR operations, and augmented the organization with a number of acquisitions and new service lines to be where Canopy is today. So I'm entering a role that has some nice stability. It's really moved from a small one product organization into, there's about 280 team members, employees globally. We have offices that are, based in the U.S., the U.K., India, and Romania. Although I will say, as an organization, we are a virtual community. So headquarters are in Connecticut, which I'm thrilled. That's where I'm located. So I have the opportunity to be virtual as well as to be in an office setting. And I do have a couple of team members from my leadership team that sit there. So really wonderful environment, lovely community. We service over 230 clients within the life sciences. So really ranging from those small organizations with, one molecule to launch to, your large top 20 pharma organizations. So these services that Canopy delivers are really there to help the life sciences organizations navigate the complexities, obviously, of drug development, commercialization, and in particularly in that compliance space. So ensuring that any type of content distribution or piece has had the appropriate legal, medical, and regulatory review before dissemination. So it's been a new chapter for me. I started the CEO role in the October timeframe. So as I said, Joe moved into the chairman role, and I've been very lucky to have him as my partner, if you will, to start evolving Canopy into its next chapter. So for me, leadership-wise, I would say my passion is really, as you said at the beginning, Mimi, that balancing operations and innovation.
Right.
I think that's probably why Joe and I make such a good partnership. He, as I said, is quite the visionary, and I really appreciate bridging that gap between innovation and compliance.
I can totally see that with you, Susanne. So that our audience understands, you and I had a chance to work together a bit a couple of years ago. And, you're so deep from an operational and execution perspective, methodologies and practices, and managing diverse teams and meeting customer expectations, such a real core idea. So it was nice that you had Joe stay around to help not only with the transition of you into the CEO role, but I imagine to provide, continued support in terms of some of the strategic foresight that I imagine he has an opinion about, as well as you too. So sounds like a good partnership between the two of you.
Absolutely. It truly is, and as I said, my background is more in communication. So, being able to learn an additional area of expertise is always a treat, especially as you move into more seasoned roles. So yes, it's been a brilliant start, I have to say.
So, Suzanne, can we talk about, because you're in an interesting segment in terms of life sciences, and I imagine that similar to what we're describing in terms of balancing operational excellence and innovation in terms of the business model, that you need to balance real compliance and execution rigor in your products and services, right? But at a
Absolutely.
time, yeah, I would think that'd be a big idea. But at a time when there's a lot of disruption and change going on in life sciences, right? So can you talk for a
Absolutely.
moment about, how you think, your industry is changing, and what forces are kind of acting on the industry that you think are going to be material?
Absolutely, Mimi. And I think you're right. I mean, I feel like that the moment changes almost daily, right? So, when you think of compliance and we think about kind of that operational rigor that sits in the services and products that we service, there's definitely risk that's there. So I think that's always there is, how are we going to manage risk for ourselves as an organization? How are we going to manage risks in partnership with our clients? And I think you can look at it almost in three different ways, if you will. So obviously, technology is advancing, right? We look at the rapid adoption of AI and different types of technology within, drug discovery, diagnostics, personalized medicine. The demand for that is obviously is high and key. And from where we sit and the lens that we have is, ensuring that there's an ethical element and trust that's associated with that. If you're looking to, being reviewing content, you have to ensure that that content is accurate and is able to be reviewed in a prompt and efficient manner. But accuracy is key in the world that we live in. So, ensuring that we're using tools and technologies that can support the process, but that human touch is something that's just mission critical in the work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then that really brings in that element of talent, right? So when we think about as quickly as our technology and our tools are moving, how do we ensure that our talent is also in a space where they feel that they've got the skills and the knowledge base to be able to deliver? And I think that's where that, I love to say that balance between operational rigor and innovation is really in harmony. So we need to make sure that our team members are on the forefront of that. Do they have the learning and development processes and procedures in place to ensure that they're staying as up to date and as informed as possible? And then lastly, we're very cautious of where we sit from a regulatory perspective. Regulatory regulations are changing rapidly, ensuring that there's an ethical landscape and the engagements that we have, and that we're staying on the forefront of that knowledge as well. So it's really is an operational and innovation flow in the work that we provide to our customers.
Susanne, just before I leave this, as you're talking about, changing idea of ethics and regulation and compliance, just wondering if you've, run into or expect to run into any transparency issues that might be, challenging for you with your clients or, relative to your services. So is transparency, something that will affect your work or your relationships, or not so much?
Absolutely. And it's a really interesting question, because I think when we think about our key stakeholders and the roles that we play, whether that's in medical affairs, whether that's in commercial operations, regulatory, the ability for us to build trust and bring clarity is instrumental in the work that we do. And I think we need to know from a client standpoint, what are their unique goals and contributions that they need to be making, and how do we help them along the way to do it in a productive and compliant way?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So, Suzanne, I have a lot of questions around the changing nature of the relationships that you have, because I know that managing these relationships, establishing trust, as you said, big idea, I think, in your business. So, can we take a moment and have you describe, who are the constituents and stakeholders? How do you think about the diverse set of constituents that are part of your business ecosystem? And what's changing about those relationships and exchanges as a result of, changing regulation, changing industry norms, et cetera?
Absolutely. So, I think at the end of the day, all of different stakeholders that we work with, right, whether that's sitting in medical, our clinical partners, even healthcare providers and patients, the ultimate goal is to make an impact on health outcomes, right? So I think because that ultimate goal is there, the ability for those key stakeholders to work in partnership, they have a purpose to do so, right? So ensuring that they're building trust amongst each other is incredibly important. But I do think you need to meet each one of them in the role that they play, right? So each one of them is going to have a different value or objective if they're sitting around a table having a discussion or reviewing a piece of material or content. So ensuring that you know the role that they play is incredibly important, and that you respect it. I think there can always be discussions that can be had. There can always be the solution that's in front of you, but it's ensuring that those evolving relationships and the ability for us to be able to ensure that there's ongoing communication really for that greater good, is where it becomes really important to make sure that those key stakeholders are working in partnership with each other.
So even though, Suzanne, right, digitalization and technology is a force that's changing, a lot of the services that, that you're delivering and the ways of working, it sounds like relationships, um, the nature of those relationships and the exchanges, if you will, of those relationships is still a key idea, maybe a widening idea in terms of your business strategy. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think collaboration is at its core. Technology is indispensable. We obviously need that on a day-to-day basis to bring our business and our ethical practices to life. But I think that level of interrelationship, ensuring that our stakeholders are well informed, allowing there to be a process of building trust and alignment in those forums, that needs to be a repeatable and a daily habit. So when we think about that the wide range of constituents that we work with, some of it is just ensuring good best practices with regards to collaboration, clear transparency with regards to communication, and a level of integrity and empathy when you're working in partnership with these individuals and meeting them where they are in order to ensure that they also have the ability to take the goals that they need to achieve.
I want to talk about the empathy and EQ idea of this in a little bit, maybe as I transition us over to culture in just a moment. But I think that's a really important point here, and you probably have some good insight. So I'll come back to that point.
Sure.
Suzanne, before I leave the relationship issue, you're a private equity backed firm. I want to make sure that people understand the nature and structure of your organization. And I imagine you also have, besides your PE partners, partner relationships that are quite important to the business too. So, as the CEO, how do you think about managing your critical partnership relationships, and what do you think about your approach? Makes those particularly successful for you in terms of how you do that.
Absolutely. And so it's really interesting, Mimi, that I think the concept of partnership for me personally has been one that has been probably part of my whole career. When I started, gosh, 25 years ago or so, within that medical communications world, I always had a partner. As the commercial lead, I had a partner, my scientific partner. He or she were inspirational in the work that I needed to do, right? We were accountable for a business. We had to, meet certain goals within that realm, but we needed to rely on each other and we needed to rely on those relationships in order for our business to be successful. And I have to say, over the years, it's continued. When I look now at where I am from a CEO perspective, I have a partnership, as I said, in Joe Walsh. He and I, are pretty much lockstep in the work that and the vision that we have. When I think about the world of our board and our PE back, they are fantastic to work with, and I'm in touch with them every couple of days. They are a great support system to the work that I do as well as to Canopy. So for me personally, I've been really lucky to have solid partnerships, to be able to allow our business to grow and really bring that long-term value to the organization. So, I think one of the things that I've always thought was interesting, especially in professional services, is that people talk about how it's a people business and, the people are really important, and they are, and don't get me wrong. But I think what people miss is the importance is actually not only the people, but how people work together, right? And the strength is how people get on together, how they challenge each other together, sometimes how they disagree. And so that level of partnership and the success that I've been able to capture, especially in the Canopy moment, I think has made, for me personally, my journey at the beginning here with Canopy, really comfortable. It allows me to be the leader that I want to be, because I have people around me that I trust.
Suzanne, I want to hang on this issue for just a minute because it's really an important one. And so I'm glad you brought it up around collaboration. And if I could extrapolate that into a broader discussion around new ways of working new ways that we need to collaborate, new, horizontal communications across the business, in and outside, more porous walls, if you will,
Sure.
around the business. How do you see the changing, nature of ways of working? And what do you think is going to be really important relative to your growth strategy?
It's a great question, Mimi. It's really interesting because I think, as I said at the beginning too, our organization is a virtual organization, which certainly I think allows for that flexibility of being able to work, and meet our clients where they're at, being able to look and work on a global scale. But obviously, the ability to come together into a forum and see each other as individuals and in person, that also has a huge value to be able to do. I think the other element is making sure you're capitalizing on happenstance. You're not seeing people in an environment, in an office location on a day-to-day basis. So how do you make sure that those casual conversations happen? Because sometimes that's where some of your best ideas come from. For me personally, collaboration is key. That's where innovation across these stakeholders is really instrumental. One of the things that I've tried to perfect over the years is really understanding different stakeholders that I work with. What are their key skill sets and communication styles? Right. So if you can kind of for the opportunity put someone into different categories when you think of how they work and how their skill sets are. So you'll have, I know who my reliable people and individuals I want to go to when I want to talk about ideation. I know the individuals that I want to partner with when it comes down to activating a plan or talking about resources. I also know who the great champions are when it comes down to implementing a plan or delivering a project. So for me, it's really being able to understand those key contributors, where their strengths are, and then thinking about how do you bring those strengths together, either in a strategy, a client deliverable, a project, so that you're almost fostering that continuous cycle of improvement while you're being able to deliver for your client or your team.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that surprised me, Suzanne, when I first was learning about Canopy after you went there, was how globally diverse the workforce is, despite the fact that it's not a huge company. So you've got people in a lot of places, given the size of the organization. So, as the CEO, how do you stay connected, with these folks? And how do you ensure that they stay connected with each other so that this idea of, knowing people's strengths, knowing how you can, pull them forward when you need to because they're particularly good at these things that you're describing, ideation, customer relations, whatever. So how do you stay connected to, a virtual but dispersed workforce like yours?
Absolutely. So I think, for me, I really tried to make an effort to put myself out there. How you show up is important. I always say that's the foundation of your culture. Your behaviors and your attitude and demonstrate your actions is incredibly important. I will say for me personally, I also have the luxury of having a really strong senior leadership team. And meeting with them frequently, asking them key questions about how are their team members doing, how are our clients doing, really starting to cultivate our values across the organization, I think is critical. We do have our town hall series, and that's important. We do have different communication and Teams channels that we use to ensure that there's an opportunity for us to be able to be in touch. I think one of the things I try to do almost on a daily basis is just look back at my day and do a bit of reflection and say to myself, is there anything piece of information that I have that I need to make sure somebody else needs in order to do their job tomorrow, right? And whether that's a strategic piece or whether that's something very tactical, is there a way for me to reach out and speak to someone before I end my day that will ensure that they have a better day moving forward?
Susan, before just to, it's kind of striking me the points that you're putting on the table. So before I, keep moving us forward in the discussion, I just want to make sure that I get, kind of your point of view on this. So if I think about the organizational capabilities that you're mentioning.
Yes.
You're mentioning a lot of different organizational capabilities. Which of those capabilities do you think, are some of this critical glue that goes to your growth strategy? So it's critical for us, to be able to, have these alignment ideas, have these commonality, ideas reliably. Like, what would you say is the glue that is right up against your growth strategy?
So I think for us, it really is the compliance element of it. It's offering the compliance and the operational services to our client partners. Each one of our different disciplines is offering a level of deep expertise that sits either within medical review of content, within regulatory operations, or regulatory affairs strategy. So each one of those is underpinned, I think you could say, with regards to compliance.
Got it. That's kind of a horizontal, if you will,
Yes.
kind of a horizontal across the organization. Anything else, Suzanne, that strikes you as, horizontal like that? I'll go into culture and some of the things about that
Yeah,
in just a second. Anything else in terms of ways of working that might be common?
I think the other thing is too is that we have from a technology standpoint, we tried to keep a level of cohesiveness that runs. I would say from a horizontal across the organization. When we look at our products and services, the question that we're asking ourselves on a regular basis is, how do we continue to make sure that our services, our professional services, are tech enabled, right? Is there something that we could be doing and offering a product to our client, or is there an opportunity for us to realign a process or procedure internally that would make the role of a professional service more effective or more efficient?
So, if I just connected the dots on that, so as a professional services organization, you're a services-based company. You mean that a horizontal, both commitment and capability is ensuring that your folks I would imagine it's a productivity as well as service delivery excellence, right, in operations,
Absolutely.
is to have access to the tools and the capabilities that could be differentiating or,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
absolutely. So
sense.
really, as you said, making sure that across our ecosystem that we have the systems, tools, and processes in place to ensure that that level of rigor is there, and there's a opportunity for our teams to work more effectively.
Got it. Um, so I want to just move a little bit into the culture and human side, of the organization relative to how you're trying to sustain culture that might have happened under Joe's leadership or prior leadership that you think is just critical to the organization going forward, and what type of cultural attributes you might be trying to strengthen in the organization because more of something is needed or because new challenges to the organization are requiring us to have, cultural capabilities or strengths that, maybe weren't required before. So could you take a moment and talk about the culture of the business, what the strengths are, and what you think needs to happen going forward in terms of bringing some of those strengths into some of the challenges you might see as the organization changes?
Sure. I mean, I think everyone talks about culture, right? They want to harvest a culture that obviously shows innovation or brings trust or a level of service excellence. And I think all of that across the board is so important. Interestingly enough, when I first joined Canopy, the organization had gone through a rebrand. So they were originally known as Framework Solution, and they had taken quite a bit of time to reflect on who they were as an organization, what their purpose was, why they wanted to continue to be able to be that preeminent partner in content review with our clients. And as they went through this process, they really put together their overarching mission for the organization. Their tagline of here to get your science there is something that individuals and team members feel really passionate about. And for me, their culture resonated. You could feel the level of professional services anytime you spoke to anyone within the organization, and they really prided themselves on that level of collaboration. in my first probably 2 months within Canopy, I wanted to bring our leadership team together. Many of them hadn't met in person before, so we took the decision to have an offsite session. We took the decision to bring the team together. And one of the sessions that we spent quite a bit of time on was, what do we want our values to be as an organization? We had done quite a bit of work on the vision and the mission, but I think the values really needed to be able to come together. So I interestingly enough, I've had a coach my probably for the most of my senior career, and he came and joined me in putting together a session for these leaders. And we took the time to really look at who we wanted to be, why we wanted to be there, and why what we wanted our clients to think we were doing as an organization. And it was probably one of the most interesting exercises I've done, Mimi, and the fact that it happened rather fast. Probably within a 45-minute brainstorm session, we had our 5 values, and all
No
of our
kidding.
team members aligned. Yes, it was just
Wow.
it was fantastic, And so I think, as you can imagine, trust obviously was the foundation. People felt very strongly about a sense of ownership. I think each of the different service lines felt passionately that they took responsibility for their work. They wanted an impact. They wanted to empower the teams underneath them. Excellence came to the table as far as their standards. You don't have to be perfect, but you want to always be striving for a level of improvement. There was a big discussion around humility and, how important it is to stay grounded. As you grow and in a growth trajectory, you can get a little bit, of a situation of looking at your business with a blind, right? To say, oh, well, we're growing. So, we've got this covered. And realistically, we should be continuing to challenge ourselves at that time, right? We should be encouraging ourselves to think of new ideas and innovation. And one of the ones that we landed on, that was the last one that we had, was a hearty discussion around the concept of happiness, which, I think is a little bit of a different spin on, on a value, if you will. But it was a unanimous discussion to say that, we want our teams and our clients to feel that happiness is driving who we are as a business, the success that we see, and really brings that level of innovation and creativity to a work that's really rigorous and compliant. And so, across the board, I think our process of getting there and looking at these values, now I can see that driving in the way that we speak to our clients, that the way that we talk to each other internally, and the way we present ourselves online.
It's so funny. You kind of got into 2 conversations I didn't expect. I'm so glad you went there, because they were 2 things I was hoping to get on the table. The first one is, that as part of your personal journey, I hope you don't mind if I say this, as part of your personal journey, your effective use of a leadership coach. I know that you've done that for a while now, and I was going to ask you about that, but I think it's unbelievable, fantastic that you brought that, into early interactions with your leadership team, and in this case, to try to create common consensus and perspective around values, something that a leadership coach would be good at. So that was awesome. That was something you did, shortly after you started.
I think for me, I've really taken the time to invest in having that relationship with my coach. As I said, he and I have been working together for probably over 9 years now, I believe. And he's really has been instrumental in being able to allow me to grow as a leader. It's a safe space that I have with him, every couple of weeks, in which, we talk about different issues or um, elements of the industry that, I want to be able to work through with him, which has been really, really valuable. One of the things I wanted to be able to instill in my team is, where I sit as a leader. So, I think it's taken me a little bit of time, I think, over the years to really appreciate that, I want to be known and seen as a leader that is not afraid to ask for help, right? Is not afraid to be vulnerable in front of my team, and is not afraid to offer a culture of stand up and be able to have a conversation and be open to, leading by example. And so I think for me personally, bringing my coach into these sessions was incredibly important. I wanted him to see how our team worked. I wanted him to be able to understand the dynamics of how we want to run run our business. And, I've done this exercise now a couple of times where, I will leave a room and allow him to have conversations with my leadership team and ask for feedback on me, right? None of it's usually a surprise. Usually we are have a level of, self-awareness here too. But, I think then action and being able to have that feedback into action just makes us a better team and makes, me a better leader.
Yeah, I love that. I want to pick that up too when we talk about you stepping into your first CEO role, because that's a big change, right? Stepping into that level of leadership, and I think our audience would be really interested in that. But just one follow up question, real quick, because I think this development of values as something that you prioritize to do with the team, is really interesting. And to just recap, I feel like what you were telling me was the organization landed on trust and ownership, excellence, humility, and happiness. Did I get
Yes,
that?
you
Those were the
did.
five
You
that you're talking
absolutely
about.
did. Yep.
Yeah. And so you started mentioning just a little bit about how you think those values have gotten legs, how they've turned into action within the organization. Can you just slow that down a little bit and tell us
Sure.
where you've seen the application of that?
Absolutely. And I think it's, as we know, right, it's important to show up with that, a reinforced culture of trust and accountability, right? And I think that what I love about Canopy is just this sense of ownership that I see it in my individual leaders as well as the organization, of how they want to deliver professionally to our clients. We are a client centricity group, but how we, as I said, show up, how we behave, how we interact with each other, is incredibly important, and we utilize these values in the work that we do, not only on a day-to-day basis, but I think when in our communication style, as well as when we think about, any of our best practices, with regards to HR, our appraisal system. So all of that is starting to take grasp and take hold, and the fact that we can now live and breathe these different, values that are important to us.
Did you find just an application, any of the values that you think struck people as unusual initially? In other words, the organization is, you might expect trust. It's just at the
Right.
heart of what you do, right? Just as you could see, excellence kind of at the heart of what you do for all the reasons that you described before. But were any of these that a bit unusual that you would say, people were a little surprised when we rolled these out and felt that we prioritized ideas, the way that we did. Is there anything that fell into that unexpected category?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Mimi. So, we did that work in the room together with my coach, and as I said, it was a fast workshop, faster than I've ever seen. But I will say we then did ask the leadership team to take those 5 values out to their broader teams and have some discussions with it because we wanted to make them feel a part of the process.
Yeah.
And so I think there was some really good, definitions that then came with regards to each of those values. And I think when I still focus a little bit here on the value of happiness, yes, you want to create an environment in which people feel valued and energized, but I think where it ended up kind of taking, a really nice turn was to say, actually, no, happiness drives engagement, it drives creativity, it drives community as opposed to, individual contributors, right? And a lot of times in our roles, we can be an individual contributor, but the concept of happiness brought us back to a sense of community.
Suzanne, how do you, from a culture perspective, maybe it's seen through the values, maybe it's seen in action. I'll let you take it, the way you'd like. But how do you balance the execution ideas of the organization, the things that make it really operationally centric, with ideas of creativity and innovation? So, how do you think about, those ideas that might not be, as synonymous to each other, as we go to really walk the walk?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking here to take those values from it to an innovation perspective, maybe? Am I correct in
Well,
saying?
I mean it as a culture question. So
Sure.
maybe it's values, maybe it's not, but it seems like in order to deliver on, the value proposition that you were talking about in terms of, your relationship with customers, your growth strategy, et cetera, that you've got, execution related ideas of how people work, and some of it's represented in what you're describing as your values. But I would also imagine that there's creativity that you're expecting from people and adaptability that you might be expecting. And I'm just wondering, how do you run the organization,
Oh, I see.
balancing the
Yes,
idea of
absolutely.
those two
Yep.
things?
Absolutely. So, I think a lot of it comes with empowering the teams to innovate within a structure, right? So, I think there's a mechanism of being able to receive feedback in that situation that's really important. I think a lot of our great ideas actually end up coming sometimes from our team and our clients, right? So I think creating an environment in which our teams are not only encouraged to be creative, maybe to even take a little bit of calculated risk, but then giving them the vehicle to be able to feed that back to us, right? To be able to have a framework that you can strike a balance between that, ability to be creative, but also have the discipline to deliver the professional services that we need
Right.
within the client environment.
Exactly. That's exactly
Yes.
what I'm talking about.
Yep.
That makes sense. What about how you manage cascading communications around the organization reliably, as a means of alignment, and transparency and people understanding kind of what you're thinking about, relative to the organization's, direction at any given point in time. So how do you communicate, and are there any things that you do as regular practices that you think are important to, the idea of making sure that you've got your finger on the pulse with people and they know what you're thinking?
Absolutely. So, I mean, for me, I think the word of over communicating is probably even better than just communication. One of the things that I kind of learned early on is that, even as opposed to being a CEO, you're almost a CRO, right? A chief repeating officer. So that, once you have your strategy set, once you have your goals that are in place, you're constantly talking about it, right? So you're in a situation where you are, you're demonstrating by leading by example, but you're also keeping that level of communication that's out there. For my leaders in particular, as I said, I'm in touch with them on a day-to-day basis. We do have formal sessions that we do monthly, and bi-monthly, I should say, in which you've got an operational sessions, and then we have strategic commercial sessions that we run. But I also think it's allowing there to be clear expectations of what I expect as a leader, and agreement on their end, right? To be able to say, I understand and know what expectations Susanne has of me, as of our organization. Our strategy plan is clear, in which we know what direction we're moving towards. But there's a level of agreement that needs to come in from the teams to say, yes, I accept that responsibility. I know the role that I'm playing within the organization to get that done. And I think lastly, it's just that transparency of process. And this one can be tricky in a growing organization because, you want to put your goals, your strategies, your decision makings in place, but you do need a level of agility and flexibility that can move with the fast pace of the life sciences environment, as well as the demands of the clients that are relying on us.
Susan, you're in a talent intensive business, obviously in terms of what you're delivering, how your services get done, how your clients get, maintained and grown, et cetera. How do you think about workforce engagement and retention, generally speaking? Like, what are key ideas to you in making sure that you have the people you need to run the company?
Absolutely. So it's that's such a good question. I think for us, we have a really unique dynamic. In the fact that our coordinator service work that we do, is a role that we've been really fortunate to be able to bring early talent into the organization. So, many of our team members are joining us for the first time, maybe out of school, or this is the second job that they've had. And then we also have individuals that are part of our team that, sit either within regulatory or within medical, and have a different level of expertise that they're bringing to the table. So it's quite a diverse group that work within the organization. So for us, we have to ensure that we are really meeting them where they are, right, from a career development standpoint, because each of them are going to have particular needs when it comes down to continued learning and their career development and growth path. So it is a little bit more of a more robust, I would say, learning and development program that we have in place. Some of it's going to be continued learning, and then some of it's going to be on the job. So, again, it's probably a little bit more diverse than some of the workforce planning that I've done historically. But I do think that for us, we like to be able to, really be in a situation where we want to foster that level of continued success within Canopy. And whether that is in the role that you're playing and advancing up to the next level, or it's a lateral move across the organization.
So learning is key in terms of your talent retention strategy, just kind of generally speaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a big idea. I've
Absolutely.
heard it in what you've said before as well. So do you think that your organization has an organizational capability around learning? Like it's a strength of ours. We're a learning organization. Is that something that you would say?
Absolutely. Hands down, Mimi, it's such an important actually comment. I think across the board, not only do we have, the ability from a training perspective to bring individuals in and be able to help support them in the roles that they're playing, but we do actually, have a robust, extension, if you will, of learning and development across the board. And I think for my own personal growth, it's moving from as a CEO, you obviously have quite a bit of experience that you're bringing into the table because quite honestly, you wouldn't be in the role that you're in if you didn't. However, it's a mindset, right, to move from kind of that I know it all mentality to I need to learn it all.
Yes.
And that's for me, that's been, part of my journey is to be able to walk into an environment where I'm learning these products and services, and it's exciting, and I want to learn more. And how can I continue to evolve my own skills and technology and industry trends when it comes down to understanding, the needs and desires of our clients that Canopy works with.
And then also, I imagine for the organization too, what do we need to unlearn and relearn as we think about some of the changing
Absolutely.
factors, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
big idea. But
Big
having a
ideas.
learning culture, is really quite an asset. Is quite an asset relative to adaptability, right? Because I
It
think
is.
that's a capability that a lot of companies, I don't think that they think they've got that as a reliable, instantiated idea within the
Yeah.
organization.
And it's such a great comment to Mimi because I truly think that because of the type of work we deliver and the audience, our client audience that we deliver to, we're delivering to scientists, we're delivering to those in regulatory, we're delivering to those, within an operational realm that there's a desire and a requirement to be able to be on a continual learning path. So I
Yeah.
think we're fortunate in the fact that we as an organization can embrace that as a part of our culture because it comes very naturally to the work that we do and deliver.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Suzanne, I want to go into, if I can, as we, get to the top of our hour here, I want to go into some of your personal journey, if you don't mind.
Sure.
But before I leave, is there anything else in culture that I didn't ask you that I should relative to, focus or organizational capabilities that you're trying to build as you think about going forward? Do we cover the big things on culture? I just don't
Yeah.
want to leave. Yeah.
No, not at all. I think we absolutely did.
Okay.
There's a lot to go through, I think on culture, and
Exactly.
I could talk for days on it because it's
I know it's a big issue of I know it's
it's
something that's
important.
important
Yeah.
to you. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure people, get all of your good ideas there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Suzanne, let me take just a minute before I ask you to give me your top advice for people. And, the thing that is, I think, going to be interesting to some of our audience is this idea that you're a new CEO, new in role, worked your way up to, a big position, obviously. And I just want to let you talk for a few minutes about, what you think was important to you in terms of getting there? Like, what things really defined your journey from your perspective, and were kind of material in you making the eventual transition from a bunch of leadership positions to now being at the helm? So, can you just give us some insights into what your journey looked like and what you can share?
Sure. Absolutely. I think I've been very lucky along the way in the fact that I've met, I think, some terrific individuals who have been champions of me. That, was very humbling, to be honest, as I was moving from my last opportunity into Canopy Life Sciences. And, I think for me, those strong relationships that I had built over 20 years all rose to the surface when I was looking for a new opportunity. And as I said, it was quite humbling. It was really overwhelming at some point, the level of care that I think was brought to the table, which just really reinforces, and I think we all know this too, the importance of a network. And I think it's even more important now in the digital world that we live in, that you can have even a larger network than you probably did years ago, given the map of people that can touch you on a day-to-day basis. So for me, that was instrumental as I moved into this role. I think the other thing too was really having a long-term vision. I think one of the things for me is, I wanted to be in a situation where I could lead an organization in a way that was really close to my personal values, and aligned those working principles with my personal values. So when I think of, who I am as an individual, I love innovation and I love balancing it with operation. How you show up culturally and being a professional team player is incredibly important to me. And so when I looked at the ability to join an organization like Canopy, it really brought that together for me as an individual. I think one of the things that has been really refreshing on the journey that I'm on today is that Canopy has kind of cultivated a creating of a sense of urgency. I think anytime you're in professional services, there is a desire to deliver with excellence, to be able to surround yourselves with people that want to make a difference and want to be able to embrace and be comfortable in a growth mindset. So the ability to continue, pushing forward, and that allows you to grow both as an individual and as an organization. I think there's an ability to, celebrate your successes, which is always wonderful, but there's also an opportunity to celebrate your failures, right? How can you learn from some of those different environments that you came from to be able to then bring yourself to an opportunity like Canopy and being a first CEO to not be afraid to do the work. And then in the end, I think you just want to be able to be a contributor, right? You want to make smart decisions. You want to make decisions that are going to impact individuals for the good. And, for me personally, I like to be a service leader. I like to service and be, a part of the team, and enjoy being that leader that people can, really rely on, whether that's, in a moment of, as I said, celebration or even of, change or risk.
It's so funny to me, the things that you point out, Suzanne, in terms of, describing what is important to you and that what you would hope you would be understood by in terms of, your leadership style. Because, I did have the pleasure, I'll tell other people, I did have the pleasure of working with you for a short period of time. And, my list on you would have been so close to what you said. And one that you didn't say that I just want to pay you a compliment on is that you're very authentic. you're a very authentic leader. And, I thought that when I met with you and sat in on leadership, meetings that you were a part of with other peers. And I remember, thinking, that's a what you see is what you get leader. And it's very, very strong thing. And I think
Oh,
people
thank
that
you.
work for you thought that too. So,
Yeah.
good for you.
Oh,
That's an
thank
important
you. It's
idea.
a lovely compliment. And we did. You and I had quite a nice project that we worked on together. And I think that goes back to Mimi, to just ensuring that you show your level of vulnerability, right? You
Yeah.
want to be an authentic person, and you're. I'm not going to have all the answers. I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room. I am in a situation where I can cultivate relationships really well. I'm passionate for what I do, and I want the people around me to thrive. That's my end goal, is to ensure that the people that are a part of my team, my organization, are successful.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, under the umbrella of a purpose-driven organization, which seemed to me to always be
Absolutely.
a bit of glue for you. So, Suzanne, help me here close this
Sure.
up by sharing with people, other business leaders, what you might, think are a couple of key ideas or key advice that you can share, that's enabled you to be, a successful CEO and successful business leader. And I would say, in particular, to run, a people-centric organization, a human-centric organization. What might you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think for me personally, I believe, as I said, in that sense of urgency with patients. You don't want to be left behind, right? We need to be future proofing. Pick your champions around you that can make a difference. Really ensure and instill that growth mindset. Number two, I would say is, be your genuine self. Being a vulnerable leader sometimes can be awkward. But I also think you're only human, and to be able to ask for help or to be able to ask for a good partner, it creates a more lively environment, and it also creates an opportunity for people to feel comfortable around you. It's that safe space to be able to lead in. And lastly, I do think it's making smart decisions. I think a decision that you make today could impact your team tomorrow, your client, your organization. So, being thoughtful in your decision making. We have a plethora of data that is around us on a regular basis. So, utilizing a combination of, here's the data to help me make the decision, and then here's some experience, and then the ability to listen to those around you to make sure that the way you're progressing is healthy for your organization and for your clients.
There you go. Well, I'll leave it at that and give you the last word there. That's great advice. I'm sure people appreciate it. And Suzanne, best of luck. Best of
Oh,
luck,
thank you,
as you go
Mimi.
into this year. I'm sure that
Yeah.
you've got a full plate and a full agenda. So, good luck in continuing to settle in there and starting to make a real difference at
Oh,
Canopy. It's going to be
wonderful.
fun to watch you.
Oh, why, thank you. Well, and thank you very much. You're always so gracious, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being here today. Yeah, I'm looking forward to really being able to help Canopy. I think they're a terrific organization, and I think the pathway forward for them is it's really exciting, actually.
Given the exciting things happening in life sciences in general, I'm going to try to get you back, a year from now or so and see what you
Oh, I'd
learned
love
and what
it.
happened. It's going to be
Absolutely.
a crazy
Yes.
year, I imagine, for
I
all of
think it
us.
will be.
So,
Yeah, I do. I think it will be. I think the saga continues, right?
exactly, exactly. The story goes on. Okay,
It
Suzanne,
does.
thank you
Perfect.
again. I
Thank
so
you.
appreciate it. And I'll talk to you
Same.
soon.
Sounds great.
Take care.
Okay. Take care.